The IEM world's a funky place. I mean, like, you can get 2 IEMs from the exact same company, exact same price from the exact same company for whatever reason they've decided to do that, and they're going to perform differently, or at least I would assume so. So that's why I got these 2 guys, which I've had sitting on my desk for maybe over a year, and let's talk about them. Considering that I have a whole bunch of IEMs that are in a similar situation where they've been kind of sitting around for a while, I'm going to be trying to make this one a little bit faster if I can help it. No! Fuck! Shit! So this is the TRN TA1 Max and TRN ST5. Let's look at them unboxing, which we get for, each one despite being the same price. Now these guys both sit around like 60 bucks, and interestingly, they are packaged very differently. Now both of course come with like the earbuds themselves, but they also come with like different sets of ear tips. However, I did notice that the ST5s do come with foam tips, and the ST5s also comes with like, a 2.5mm adapter, interestingly, a 4.4mm adapter, and a cable, and these adapters can switch off with like the 3.5mm on the cable itself. The TRN just comes with, well, a 1/4-inch adapter, a cable, and interestingly, the rest of the money that isn't there for everything else, it went into a case to put it all in for whatever reason, but on the bright side, at least they both get the same amount of paperwork. Now, as far as cables are concerned, I think they are generally very similar, but the TA1 Max is just okay, being just an angled jack and nothing crazy going on here, and the braid isn't quite as nice as the one on the ST5, and, this cable is, interchangeable with this little bit over here, so that's kind of cool. You should have some pressure and you can swap it out, you know what I mean? So the nicer cable is interestingly on the one that didn't come with the case, so maybe that's where the money for the case went once again. Now design and build wise, they're very similar to being like all metal builds all around, despite different nozzles, though same grills and whatnot. Size and design is definitely different with the TA1 Max. It is more of a semi-open design. If you look into here the grill, you can kind of see that, so you have more airflow, and this will affect how it will sound. But the TRN ST5, despite looking like a closed back, I mean it technically is, but it does have some venting system to have some openness to it. Not a whole lot, but it is there. There's also differences in drivers, whereas this one has 5 and this one has 2, with both having DD drivers, but this one has like 4 BA drivers and this one only has 1 BA driver, so that'll also affect how they sound. Of course, I should note that just because something has more drivers doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, as we've seen in the past with many other IEMs and headphones for that matter. But this is more of an IEM kind of situation thing where some people thought more drivers was better than less, and then we found out that wasn't always the case. It was about how you use the drivers that really mattered. Now, as far as fit is concerned, when it comes to things like the ST5s, with their generally pretty standard typical size and shape, they fit pretty okay. I think most of you should take it pretty well, and it's easy to find like the points, not too much fidgeting to find the comfort, and I can wear them for a pretty long time. They're relatively light, pretty comfortable, looks okay, it's what I expected. The TA1 Maxes, on the other hand, were more of a fidgety experience due to the small shape. I really had to search for where the good seal was, at least with one of my ears, so that could be due to the pre-curling of the the hooks, trying to find the right spot, and they seem okay. They're pretty small. The fit is fidgety, at least for me, but regarding both, your mileage will vary, but I feel like most people will have a similar issue with me due to just the small size of the TA1 Maxes. Finding the seal is just more annoying than I thought it would be. For me, the fit for the TA1 Maxes, not great. For you, maybe it'll be good. I don't know. Now, as far as sound is concerned, for both the ST5 and the TA1 Maxes, they both have a warm sound with more of a focus on the mids and the low end, so more of the sub bass than the mid bass. So on both of them, you can expect more rumble than punch for the bass region, though they both handle a little bit differently. For example, on the ST5s, it's got a more strong bass presence. It's definitely more boosted, and this is more probably due to the closed back nature of it. So more rumble than punch, relatively present bass feel, so there's a good amount of that growl. Though I do think it bleeds into the lower mids a bit, so that's not good. Granted, the mids overall weren't the most detailed in the world, though I did notice that there is a mid bump in the mid-mids to upper mids, and some detail came out a little bit more there, but I think overall the mids is on the smoother side. Though in the mid-mids, I will say there is a good amount of air around it, so and that might be because of that vented design, so that's kind of interesting for that sound separation I've noticed, despite the stage being relatively small, though it is, average for an IEM in terms of the size of a stage. But despite it all, there's a good amount of space in that mid region, and that was kind of interesting and kind of pleasant and nice, so that was kind of cool. And as you head into the highs, they just kind of roll off a little bit earlier, fairly. They don't go too high. You get a decent amount of highs, but nothing like too high up there, nothing too shrill, so they play it very safe. It's an overall very comforting listening experience, very melodic, and they're just, okay, pretty typical, aside from the mids being the way they are. So that part was kind of interesting. As for the TA1 Maxes, these ones approach things a lot more interestingly, and this has a lot to do with the semi-open back design, making the stage surprisingly large for an IEM, and even being larger than some closed back headphones out there, which is pretty impressive for an IEM. This then does like change how like the sound is affected with this extra space. So at the low end, while there is more of that slight bass boost, it's not nearly as boosted as like on the ST5s, and it's just okay. There's a feel. It is more rumble than it is punch, so more low end, super low end, and sub bass. But the feel is nowhere close to what I'd say a bass head would like. An audiophile might like it, an average person might like it, but an average person who likes bass and has a preference for bass may not like it very much because they may find there's not enough of it. But for an audiophile, I think it's like a decent amount of bass, and it does allow like the mid-range overall to come out a little bit more because the mids on these are also a little bit forward, but there's even more space around each and every part of it, so the sound separation overall for all the sound is really great. Though as you get to the higher range, it does have the same situation as the ST5s, where it kind of rolls off a bit early, doesn't go too crazy high, giving you just enough detail to work with without being shrill. So neither of these are very bright in any means. They're neither dark either. They're just kind of warm-ish with a slight mid-push, though one has a much larger soundstage, and this does affect the way they game, and they're both very different for that. Like in competitive shooters, I just prefer the TA1 Maxes more because of the slightly larger stage, and the way it handled the stage was really good, being relatively round with a lot of width to it, and accuracy was good. For precision and imaging with this guy, I think it used the stage relatively well. Not 100% pinpoint, but pretty darn good. There's a good amount of air around all the sounds, allowing you to track things very accurately to hunt down your opponents. Whereas in the ST5s, they were just okay. Like, yeah, it did have that mid-sound separation when I listened to music, but when it transferred into games, it was okay. I do think they did, better than average when it comes to its imaging, because there is some degree of sound separation, but because of the smaller stage we're working with, the sound separation overall still was just okay. It wasn't the greatest in the world, but just enough to get you by. Nothing you would use for like super competitive stuff if you're really try-hard sweat. That's where the TA1 Maxes come in if you're like comparing these two together. So I wouldn't really use the ST5s for competitive stuff as much as the TA1 Maxes. These are ones that are more for chilling than anything else. The ST5s, in case you don't know what I'm pointing at. Now when it comes to non-competitive games, it can go either way. It really depends on the experience you like. It's because both of them did relatively well. With the ST5s, you get a more engaging experience. It's more exciting the way it presents the sound. However, I think the details are a little bit lacking at times, and it was just an okay experience. So the world was still relatively large, but it was not my favorite experience when I was comparing it to like the TA1 Maxes. Like, yeah, I think the ST5s were okay, but the TA1 Maxes I generally preferred because I like the clarity of sound it brought and the size of the world that it gave me. It felt more natural in terms of like its presentation of sound for this like realistic kind of like immersive experience I'm trying to get. Though I will say at times I did wish I was using the ST5s, because sometimes in like these games you just want things to be really boomy, exciting, and in your face. So that's not what the TA1 Maxes will give you. They'll give you more of a kind of that realism immersion, so that was kind of nice. The clarity of sound is also nice, so it's like, what a cool world. Whereas with the ST5s, it's more like, BAM! World! You're here! So very different experiences, of course. Now, at the price point of these guys both being essentially around $60, sometimes for less if they're on sale, I think they're just okay. With the TRN, like, ST5s, that's definitely more the case than not. I think they're just okay for the price. There are a lot of options out there that I think are personally, like, better, some even worse, but I guess it really comes down to taste. So if you like that, what you heard about the sound of these guys, maybe you'll prefer these over other sounds, but at which point, with the sound that it presents, I would just save up and get like an Aria 2, because those are really darn good for the price. They do cost more, but trust me, it is worth it. Whereas with like the TA1 Maxes, if you're looking at these guys, I think these things do really good. However, I think I prefer them more for gaming than for music, though I think for music they did a pretty good job. But if you're more into like warmer sounds, like actually more warmer sounds with more bass, I wouldn't get them. But if you're just using them for gaming with what they present, I think they're pretty darn great because of this, what they give you with this larger stage and how they handle the sound for that. It was quite surprising, especially at this price point, though the only downside that I did have with these guys is they were not the most comfortable set, because you do have to try to find the fit in your ear for these guys, and that was a little bit frustrating, but once you're there, you're there. With the ST5s, on the other hand, they just kind of fit pretty easily, so there's that. So if I had the comfort of the ST5s on the TA1 Maxes, these would be a really great set. But as they are, I think they sound great for gaming, but I think the fit could be better. So, but you know, that really depends from person to person. So your mileage will vary, as you may know, because everyone's ears is just a little bit different. Regardless, if you like either or of them and you're like thinking about picking up a pair or maybe just trying them out and returning them later or using those policies and whatnot, I'll leave some links down in the description. Just give me a slight kickback so I can like live a little bit longer. I don't know if those are necessarily like the best prices you can find for them. Maybe you'll look elsewhere, but you know, I should have made these videos like 2 years ago, or yeah, basically 2 years ago. So these have been sitting on my desk for quite a while. Just me being irresponsible, I guess. And I'm trying to burn through all the ones I have on my desk so I can just get through it. But it's kind of interesting trying things late and then also trying things that are newer, because you do see some changes. Like when it comes to like the typical warm sound, I think there are just better options than the ST5s. But I can see some people actually preferring to sound at the ST5s regardless of what I think, because that's just how sound is. It's very much about like your preference personally. But when it comes to the technicalities that I lean towards, it might be because I'm an audiophile. I would just choose something else that's a little bit more good on like details and clarity. Whereas interestingly, the TA1 Maxes, I don't see them on sale as much and as in like as many places on the internet compared to the ST5s, but I think overall they're just better technically. But this may be because I'm looking at it from gaming, and I can imagine these being not preferred if you're into music. So especially like this price point in the crowd that would be buying IEMs. I can imagine someone looking for more expensive IEMs maybe liking them, but at which point they might just get something super expensive. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's a weird market, the IEM world. It's just too many IEMs out there and it just keeps changing and whatnot. But anyway, don't buy just because I told you to. Just buy because you like what you heard and maybe you want to try it to see if you actually do like it. Just know what sounds you like, what games you play, and the kind of things you're going to be using these for before you purchase anything. So that being said, that's all I got for today. So see you guys next time.